Welcome Trinidad and Tobago to a News 4 report, a product of the Government Information Services Limited. I'm Joseph Lopez. Let's take a look at the headlines. The Miscellaneous Provisions Proceeds of Crime Anti-Terrorism Act and Financial Intelligence Unit Act 2014 are passed unanimously in the lower house. The Finance and Economy Minister, along with the Prime Minister, closes the curtain on the 2014-2015 post-budget debate. And the Minister of Public Administration says systems are in place for the public service to make transition from gold to diamond in the near future. Thank you for joining us. Top of the news. The Finance and Economy Minister wrapped up the budget debate in the lower house on Thursday evening. He took the opportunity to highlight critical areas of the fiscal package and why certain spending decisions were made.
The debate on the budget came to a close on Thursday in the lower house before it goes to the Standing Orders Committee and the Senate in the next 2 weeks. In making his closing statements on the fiscal package for 2015, Finance Minister Larry Howard assured that forecast revenue earnings for next year were at a comfortable state.
We expect investments of over $3 billion a year for the next 3 years. Now, Mr. Speaker, this money doesn't all stay in Trinidad and Tobago because there's a large import content that goes along with these investments. But very importantly, what it points to is the return to confidence by investors in Trinidad and Tobago. The balance of payments continue to remain positive, ending at $786 million last year, which has continued to contribute to the growth in our foreign exchange reserves, which, as we had indicated some time ago, amounted to $10.2 billion, or about 12 months of import cover. Unemployment remains low at 3.7%, and the debt to GDP ratio remains well managed at 43.4%.
Minister Howard presented a $64 billion budget for 2014-2015 on Monday, September 9th, which led to a number of organizations calling for a review of the allocations and spending habits. In referring to the expenditure, the Finance Minister says while the books will be balanced, meeting the needs of the people are necessary of any government, which does require some spending.
It's one thing for those different sectors to call for cuts and to call for cutbacks and to call for restrictions in expenditure. But of course, when that starts to happen, it's the same people who are calling for it who would then, just as the member said, and he was quite right, those are the same sectors who will continue, who will then be raising a hue and cry about the economy is slow, the economy is contracting, and that businesses are failing and so on. So we have to disentangle ourselves from this in a way that does not seriously dislocate our economy.
Addressing issues regarding suggestions made by international financial organizations, the minister highlighted subsidies as one of the critical areas that often comes under the spotlight, but is needed for the economy's growth.
While the IMF may come to us and say that the policy prescription is to reduce transfers and subsidies, I should say that they pay less attention to the impact of these policy prescriptions on the society as a whole and on their social impact and the dislocation that could be associated with that policy. And neither do they provide a roadmap. They simply indicate in a broad sense that they feel that this is what should be done. It is for us to ensure that we make these changes without dampening competitiveness and without dislocating our economy as a whole. So the trick is really to find a way that takes us out of the major subsidies while ensuring social stability and economic growth.
In accordance with Standing Order 85-1, the consideration of the clauses of the bill will be postponed until after the consideration of the schedule, which lists the heads of expenditure to be approved. Kimberly Ramkalawan, News 4.
The debate legislation to amend the Financial Intelligence Unit FIU Act continued in the lower house on Friday. Now the bill seeks the establishment of a Seized Assets Fund and the operations of a Seized Assets Committee.
Just over a month since its introduction into the lower house, the bill aimed at regulating the Financial Intelligence Unit got its second reading from Finance Minister Larry Howey. While the proposed amendments to the bill outlines increased monitoring of financial transactions and the policing of these institutes, it facilitates the seizure of property from criminal organizations.
At Clause 4 of the bill, Mr. Speaker, we are putting forward an amendment to the definition of terrorist property to include property belonging to a terrorist or terrorist organization. The United Nations Security Council Resolution 1373 calls upon states to prevent and suppress the financing of terrorism by, among other things, freezing any property belonging to a terrorist or terrorist organization.
Regarding the questions of where these funds will go after it has been confiscated, the minister says a Seized Assets Fund will be established.
What we have, Mr. Speaker, now is a much more comprehensive regime for the management of seized assets, where, one, the Seized Assets Fund is established with identified accounts and audit rules for the controller of accounts. Two, there will be a Seized Assets Advisory Committee, the members of which will be appointed by the Minister of National Security. The Seized Assets Advisory Committee will provide advice on disbursement of monies from the fund. Three, it is clear that the Minister of Finance and the Economy will be responsible for disbursing funds for prescribed projects. Four, there's now an expanded list of prescribed projects or uses of the fund. Five, the monies which will comprise the fund are clearly identified. And six, there's guidance on how the committee must deal with different types of property.
At the end, the bill was unanimously passed in the lower house, with all members giving the green light to the FIU bill.
I beg to move that a bill entitled An Act to Amend the Proceeds of Crime Act, Chapter 1127, the Anti-Terrorism Act, Chapter 1207, and the Financial Intelligence Unit of Trinidad and Tobago Act, Chapter 7201, be forthwith read a third time and passed.
Honourable members, the question is the bill entitled An Act to Amend the Proceeds of Crime Act, Chapter 1127, the Anti-Terrorism Act, Chapter 1207, and the Financial Intelligence Unit of Trinidad and Tobago Act, Chapter 7201, be now read a third time and passed. All in favour say aye. Aye. Any against? The ayes have it. This bill requires a special majority, 3/5. So a division is required. A division, please.
Yes.
Mr. Imbert? Lucky. You're lucky. Just because it's financial legislation to deal with terrorism, we vote yes.
As a result of the division, with a division of 36 members voting for, no member voting against, and no abstentions, the motion for the third reading of the miscellaneous provisions, proceeds of crime, anti-terrorism, Financial Intelligence Unit of Trinidad and Tobago, number 2 Bill 2014, is unanimously approved.
Kimberam Calawan, News 4.
Prime Minister the Honourable Kamla Persad-Bissessar says she believes the 2014-2015 fiscal package focuses on people-centred development and delivers on many of the promises made by her government. She makes this assertion as debate wraps up on the financial year 2015 bill in the House of Representatives.
Addressing the House during Thursday's sitting, Prime Minister Persad-Bissessar says nothing is wrong with persons labelling the budget an election budget. She explains every budget should be considered an election budget.
You say it's an election budget. What's wrong with that? Minister Howey said it in his own words. I will say it in mine, which is to say every budget is an election budget. Every budget. Why is it so? It is because we sit here because of an election. That's why we are here. If there were no election, we would not be here. If we were not elected by the people, we will not be here.
The Prime Minister says the budget does something she has aimed to do throughout her tenure as the leader of the country, which is to deliver on the promises made to the people.
We made promises in our conversations, which are promises that we are seeking to deliver and to keep, Mr. Speaker. And if it is then that you say these goodies are in effect to give to people, to win friends, then I say nothing is wrong with that. And if you call that a shame, then I stand and we stand so accused to help the poor, to help the underprivileged, to help the elderly.
Mrs. Prasad Basasa explains that contrary to what some may believe, people-centered development is actually at the heart of national development.
Our budgeting and our policies and programs have always been people-centered. People-centered. We took it out in the manifesto. We talked about people-centered development. For years, whilst I was in opposition, I talked about people-centered budgeting. On the other side, they said that is not development. The Minister of Finance has provided no development, no plans for development, and so on. But, Mr. Speaker, development is not just about concrete and steel and mega projects and mega buildings. True development is about human development. Human development.
The Prime Minister says her government's focus on people-centered development is evident with the increase of the pension grant, the increase in the minimum wage, and the newly introduced baby care grant. Education is also an important aspect of human development, and the Prime Minister indicates that the introduction of the student laptop program, the construction of 88 early childhood care centers, 74 primary schools, and 15 secondary schools throughout the entire country signals just how focused her government is on developing the country through its people. Gregory McBurney, News 4.
More news when we return. Stay with us. Welcome back. Systems are being put in place to ensure the standard of the public service move from gold to diamond. This will be achieved through a number of existing and future programs under the Ministry of Public Administration.
The Ministry of Public Administration is taking an all-out approach to preparing public officers to meet modern-day demands. This approach begins at the level of tertiary education through the National Scholarship Program and moves up to the retraining of existing public officers. Minister of Public Administration, the Honourable Caroline Prasad-Basasa, spoke of a number of initiatives during the budget debate in the lower house. First on her list was the developing of a competency-based framework program which her ministry, through a consultant, would undertake during a 13-month period.
The 21st century public officer will have skills, will now see a competency-based framework which will allow for the public officer to have skills, knowledge and behavior that leads to successful performance. And this is what we refer to as the competencies. So the modern public officer will have about at least 10 competencies which they will continuously improve from one level to the next. Because in the public service itself, you will have about 6 levels in the middle management, 3 at the top level, and probably about 3 to 4 at the bottom of the organization. And Mr. Speaker, each of these competencies will have to be built and they will have to continuously improve as they move from one level to the next. What are these competencies we are talking about? For example, Mr. Speaker, understanding the big picture, changing and improvement, continuous improvement. How do you respond to innovation? How do you seek out opportunities to create effective improvements? Making effective decisions. We make a lot of decisions, but if we want an empowered organization, then public officers must know how to make effective decisions.
According to the minister, one of the areas her ministry wants to strengthen is e-learning.
Because if we are to accelerate the learning and the experience of the modern 21st century public officer, we have to accelerate the training and development within the public service. And to do so, we can do so by e-learning because we will reach more public officers at that time. We are looking at an e-learning strategy, Mr. Speaker, that will actually be dealt with in 3 phases. The first phase being that they will be able to do most of their work online and be certified for the first phase. The second phase will allow them to interact with other members from other agencies at the training center. And there they will also be certified. And then at the third phase, they must come back into the ministry and actually implement what they have learned before they get a final certification. Only when they have completed all 3 phases can they be considered to be or deemed to be certified in a particular area.
The National Scholarship Program was also discussed during the minister's contribution as she explained how the program was rapidly expanding.
We have increased the number of scholarships in the Ministry of Public Administration. And in fact, Mr. Speaker, approximately 1,935 scholarships were awarded to nationals over the last 3 years. And this will increase by the end of this month to 2,085 by the end of this month. We also expect, Mr. Speaker, by the end of this month, we will have spent close to $245 million on these scholars over the last fiscal year.
The Ministry of Public Administration is actively involved in the areas of education and training through the provision of scholarships and job opportunities within the public service. Minister Sipasad Bechan spoke of a number of other programs, including the expansion of government's e-service, which is the government's online portal, and the Ministry of Public Administration's direct relationship with other ministries. Nikolai Edwards, News 4.
The Ministry of Works and Infrastructure wishes to advise the public that there will be a temporary disruption in traffic on the Lady Young Road between the Lookout and the Lady Young Walkover. Works will commence on Saturday 20th September and continue for 15 days ending Saturday 4th October. The work will be executed between the hours of 7 p.m. and 6 a.m. and the disruption is deemed necessary in order to facilitate road rehabilitation works. Motorists are advised to proceed with caution and observe all directional signs and barriers, comply with instructions from police officers on site to facilitate the safe flow of traffic in an orderly manner. Now, be aware of heavy equipment entering and exiting the site. Drive with caution on all or possibly uneven surfaces and drive at a reduced speed on approaching the work zone. The Ministry of Works and Infrastructure regrets any inconvenience caused and thanks the public for its consideration. We'll take a break. More news when we return. Thank you for staying with us. The highly anticipated start of the new Pro League football season will be on Saturday when W Connection FC and Central FC face off in the Charity Shield. Principals from both teams met the media at the offices of the Pro League on Thursday. Wayne Cunningham was there and he is giving us this report.
What was deemed as the marquee matchup in the last Pro League season will be the first clash of the 2014-2015 campaign when DirecTV, W Connection and Central FC meet for the Charity Shield on Saturday at the Atterbolden Stadium in Vancouver. The head-to-head between Connection and Central last season stands at a deadlock of 3 wins each and 1 draw. But Connection coach Stuart Charles Fervier is looking ahead to the new season.
We are quite satisfied with where we are at the moment. You know, we know we are not 100% in terms of where we would want to be, but we feel we are good enough to make a good start. And as the season go along, we know we will progress. We have some young quality players, you know, like Vanu said, they still have very good potential, you know, they very good potential, but they need work to develop to be a top player, you know. And at the club, we're very serious in terms of our work. Preparation is everything for me personally as a coach. I believe in preparation. And I'm very confident that once these players buy into our philosophy, that they will develop to move on as well.
The much-travelled Zoran Vranic is in his first season as head coach of Central FC, and he sees his role as long-term.
What I want to tell also, maybe message to my players more than anybody else, to understand what is football about. We have team that will play without 4 or 5 maybe best player from last season. You know that couple guys, top player left club, but we have young guys who are coming up nicely, and I think that all countries supposed to support them and to guide them in the right way, which is my major point. You know, to develop them to be good one day. Potential, yes, but it doesn't mean that they are good players yet, and that's the difference. If we understand, and I hope now our players starting to understand what is the difference between good player and be good talent, which is really different. And now, as a coaches, as maybe all countries supposed to recognize that and to finally make from some talents to be good players in the future.
Central midfielder and former Trinidad and Tobago Under-20 World Cup captain Liston Paul is under no illusions regarding the importance of the match.
It's one of the biggest games for the season because I think every game against W Connection is a big game. Because you know, from last season you can say that they were the best team in the league. They won 5 titles or so, and I think winning is a habit. So starting from Saturday, I think once you start with a win, it would be a catalyst to go out through the season. Every game against Connection it's not a war to say, but it's one of the games that everyone tends to show up. So I think it's the same as last season. Just come and play your best, and hopefully the better team on the day gets the victory.
Paul is eager to make his mark in the Pro League.
Coming back to the Pro League, I think to start my professional career, I think it was a move I can't say that was at the top of my list, but I think you have to start somewhere as a professional footballer, and I think starting home was the best option for me to build myself and then hopefully move on. But I think being in the Pro League is it's good to play in front of the home fans. You know most of the fans, everyone come out and support. And I think it's a good privilege.
The Digital Charity Shield kicks off at 6 p.m. on Saturday at the Atherbolen Stadium in Couva. Wayne Cunningham, News 4 Sports.
Thank you, Wayne. We'll take a break. More news when we return. Welcome back. Water for All by 2015 and a new marina in Lambo are among the budget highlights for Tobago. Finance Minister Larry Hawaii unveiled a $65 billion budget for the country on Monday under a theme, Empowering Our People Through Sustained Economic Growth and Security, in which he outlined a number of items for Tobago.
Tobago House of Assembly will receive $2.609 billion, of which $2.2 billion will be for recurrent expenses and $384 million for development or capital programs. Last year, the allocation for recurrent and capital spending was $2.477. URP in Tobago will get $423 million, and the additional spending will come from various other ministries. This includes pipe-borne water for all Tobago residents by 2015. This is already 70% complete. Attention continues to be placed on the tourism industry, with hotel owners receiving a 25% money-back guarantee on upgrades to each room up to $15,000 per room. Guest house owners with 1 to 5 rooms will receive a rebate of 20% on maximum cost of $75,000 for each refurbished room. A marina in Petitru in Lambo is to be constructed using public-private partnership funding. A new office for Motor Vehicle Authority will be ready by next September, replacing the existing one in Lower Scarborough. The $65 billion budget is pegged against an income of US $80 per barrel of oil and US $2.75 per MMBTU for gas. Reporting from Tobago, Natoya Johnson, News 4.
And that's how we wrap up this edition of our News 4 Report, a product of the Government Information Services Limited. Remember, you can view a repeat of our newscast weekdays at 6 a.m. and, of course, feel free to visit our Facebook page at facebook.com/OurTV4. And you can visit our YouTube channel, youtube.com/the GISLTD. I'm Joseph Lopez. Thank you for watching.